Thank you, Your Honour. Sergeant Jolly, just before the break, I was asking you about your interaction with Kumanjayi when you came to know him in 2014 in the community. And you had told Her Honour about different stakeholder meetings and then your concern for a number of children in the community. There were about 14 at the time. And you raised these concerns with Territory families. In the brief of evidence at 2-62, there are various progress notes from Territory families, and I just want to read to you some of those progress notes and ask for your reflections. So the first one is from the 8th of July 2014. It's page 17 of 130 for the benefit of those at the bar table. In attendance at that stakeholders meeting is noted to be Bethany Njeru, Njeru. That's the Beth you told us about?
Beth Gia, that's her other name. Yep. Gia, I think it's GIA. Beth Gia, yeah.
Okay. And her name's spelled here for the benefit of the transcript as Ngeru, and it's noted that she's from Mount Theo, so connected with the WIDAC program.
It's actually WIDAC. That would have been my probably mistake, but yeah.
So you're not the author of this.
Oh, okay.
So don't claim it.
Also, the event date is the 1st of July, but the note date is the 8th of July.
Thank you, Your Honour. Thank you. So this is noted to be, as Her Honour said, 1st of July and at 3 p.m, a stakeholder meeting. And a number of people are there, including a caseworker from DCF known as, I might be mispronouncing that, Tine or Tine. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, yep.
Morgate. And then Fiona Jolly's there. There's someone from corrections. There's a nurse, and Derek is there, Robin Schmidt, Anne Jolly, and a number of others. And I won't read the whole note there, but it states that Kelly from corrections says corrections will be coming out to Yundamu and other communities to try and touch base about the children they are involved with. It was discussed that Kumanjayi may be living in a particular house, and it was noted that during the meeting it was unclear who cares for Kumanjayi. Leanne is who he calls mum, however she's not the biological mother. His father remarried again, and that's when Leanne comes in. She's his stepmother. Beth stated that WIDAC have been talking to his grandmother Jean due to their concerns about Kumanjayi, and there's a note about concerns in terms of his functioning. Beth stated she's also spoken to Jean about concerns with Arnold's brain injuries. Beth stated that his mother was known to be a sniffer, as in sniffing solvents, a lot while pregnant, and while pregnant with Kumanjayi, and that might have contributed to his brain injury concerns. And Derek informed the group that both of his parents had passed away. There was a note that Kelly said that as a child he was teased a lot at school. The group of stakeholders wanted to know if he was attending school and where he got food from. School was not able to be contacted because it was school holidays, and Kelly told the stakeholders that he was called crazy at school and was also called that name while he was in corrections by other children. Does that reflect the level of concern being discussed about Kumanjayi at that time?
Yeah.
All the stakeholders?
Yeah.
There's a note here that the stakeholder discussed that the child needs an assessment around his cognitive and development due to his concerns about Kumanjayi's mental health. Was that something that you thought should happen, an assessment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know whether it did happen around that time, 2014?
I'm not sure, because it would have been a health thing.
If it didn't happen, do you agree that is a great shame?
Yes, definitely.
There's another note, for example, at page 40 from December 2014, which notes that the Territory Families worker spoke to Fiona Jolly where they were looking for Kumanjayi. Fiona said to check with WIDAC before attempting to get to Mount Theo because everybody came into the community because of the storms, and Fiona nominated another person who'd been looking after Kumanjayi, a male person. Territory Families attended Yundamu Police Station and spoke with Sergeant Annie Jolly. She says the community were angry with Kumanjayi, and you were expressed to be relieved that he was returning to bush mob and boarding school in the new year. Do you recall now any discussion about Kumanjayi going to a boarding school?
No, more so bush mob than boarding school. Yeah.
Can you tell us then about your how police work with bush mob?
Bush mob is often something is the court's rule as opposed to being in detention, him being in a program called bush mob. So it's a very structured program, I believe. So, and a lot of the kids do well in it, young offenders. So
That was my next question. Have you seen young people do well at bush mob and come back and not offend afterwards?
they often do reoffend. The truth is known, but it is, some don't, but a lot do. But it is a very structured program. From what I know, I don't know the program,
Sure.
but from what I've seen when the kids come back.
If there's a way of diverting young people away from the criminal justice system into bush mob, is that something that you're generally supportive of?
Yeah.
There's another note. I'm just taking you two examples, of course. This is at page 48, and it relates to a concern for welfare expressed by police. The date of this one is the 22nd of August 2015. It sets out some of Kumanjayi's history and then notes, police are concerned for the welfare of Kumanjayi, who's constantly roaming the Yundamu community at all hours of the morning. It is alleged that Kumanjayi was committing offences, however that was not confirmed as yet. Friends of Kumanjayi advised that they were concerned because he was escalating in terms of his conduct and disturbances within the community. It was of concern that he was throwing rocks onto roofs and running around the community at hours of the night. Do you recall that being the case in December 2000? I would draw that in August 2015.
No, not so much. No.
Do you recall having concerns about Kumanjayi in 2015 in terms of his mental health and well-being?
There was always concerns. Yes.
Do you agree that the need for him to be assessed in terms of his cognitive functioning and mental well-being was still present in 2015?
Yes.
And you would have expected that to be done if the resources were available?
Yes.
In another notation later in the year, on the 3rd of September 2015, as you say in your statement, paragraph 14, you submitted a child abuse report, or what you termed to be a child abuse report, because you watched Kumanjayi deteriorate since his return to community. When he first got back to community after having been away, he was looking healthy, is that right?
Yes.
And he put on some weight in a good way?
Yes.
And then he deteriorated after that, correct?
Yes.
This worker from Territory Families notes, I spoke to Annie Jolly and discussed Kumanjayi and confirmed he was taken into custody last night on the 3rd of September for a breach of bail. Annie expressed concern that no one was caring for Kumanjayi and his carer Leanne at that stage had moved to Brisbane. Annie expressed further concern that Kumanjayi had lost a lot of weight and members of the community had found him sleeping in the back of a church in a swag. And Annie advised that she was making another notification to CIT today. Firstly, what was CIT? Do you recall?
Can't remember.
Okay.
Sorry.
In relation to in relation to any concerns that you had, we will hear from family, of course, as to how much they did care and love for Kumanjayi and what was available to him. But from your perspective as a police officer, what were your observations in terms of what was available for Kumanjayi?
As far as family?
Yes.
Yeah, so family, and it's often very tricky because when I went and spoke to family, they've obviously got a lot of other children in their care, and when I spoke to family, they said he just wasn't listening. They were trying, but he's not listening to them.
And at that time, in terms of Kumanjayi not listening, did you have that experience with him yourself?
I can't recall. I mean, Derek could probably be the one because he probably communicated more, but yeah. I think for me, it was more of a watching him physically deteriorate and, yeah, there was concerns for just his behaviour.
Back in 2014, there had been a decision of the stakeholders that he needed assessment for his intellectual functioning and mental health.
Yep.
Did you think that his Kumanjayi's issues in terms of behaviour were likely to be related to that?
Yeah. Yes.
And as a police officer without the expertise in trauma and mental health, you needed external assistance to tackle it, to address it?
Yes.
Just a couple more notes to take you to page 58. There's a note from the 5th of October 2015. On the 5th of September, someone from the department received a call from you, Sergeant Jolly, who said that Kumanjayi needed to come into care because your perception was that no one was caring for him and he was refusing to go to Waidak. He was pacing and erratic, and then he didn't currently have access to ganja, meaning cannabis, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So you knew at that stage he had drug issues with cannabis?
Yes.
And could his behaviour deteriorate if he was agitated about getting access to it?
When there was no ganja, yes.
And your perception at that time was that Kumanjayi was refusing to reach out to Waidak or to
engage, yeah.
In spite of their efforts, is that fair?
Yeah.
There's a further note here from, for example, June 2016, page 66, that again, there's contact with police and Northern Territory families in respect to Kumanjayi and concerns. Police Sergeant Annie Jolly advised that Kumanjayi left the community with the support of a service interstate following a particular incident. Do you recall that, where Kumanjayi went to Queensland?
Yeah, that surgeon or something?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember, well, Kumanjayi went to
Sevgen, yeah, that's it.
In June 2016. When Kumanjayi came back from Sevgen, had you in fact left the community at that time?
I think he came back in August and I was on holidays.
Do you recall seeing any improvement in his functioning or behaviour after Sevgen? And if you don't recall?
No, because I was on leave and I came back from leave and I don't recall.
And do you recall what month you left the community of Nyundamu?
When I went on leave, it was August, I think.
And then you were in community from 2014 through to 2017.
Yes.
When was it in 2017 that you moved on from that post?
August.
In April of that year, there's a note, this is the final one I'll take you to, it's at page 80. On the 7th of April, departmental staff spoke to Sergeant Annie Jolly of Yundamu Police Station. You advised that because of Kumanjayi's behavioural issues, there was a perception that he was no longer welcome at Yundamu community. Sergeant Jolly explained that while Miss Oldfield said she cared for Kumanjayi, there'd been no responsible adult to look after him and he never received care like a child deserves. That was your perception. Obviously, we'll hear from family what was their perception. But why was that your view?
Can't remember, to be honest.
I'll just see if I can refresh your memory in terms of what the other note taker said.
Yep.
Kumanjayi walks around the community,
Yep.
was suspected to break into places. There was a concern because of a negative impact on young children. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Sergeant Jolly added that there was a time when Kumanjayi was sleeping on the floor at the church in a dirty swag. And there's a note here, Miss Jolly added that Kumanjayi is a troubled young man through no fault of his own. Is that what you thought at the time?
Yeah.
Did you feel for him?
I did.
If I suggest to you that there was no full mental health or cognitive assessment done for him until 2017, what do you say about that in circumstances where stakeholders were asking for it in 2014?
Appears that we've let him down.
I just want to come to a couple of occasions where you came to arrest Kumanjayi. You note these in one of your statements. Excuse me for a moment. For example, in that one I took you to of the 2nd of September 2015, You arrested Kumanjayi alongside Constable Coulson and a Constable Blanchard and Akpo Williams. I'm asking you to cast your mind back.
Yep.
But do you recall whether there was any trouble arresting him on that occasion?
Yep, he ran from us.
And what did you do in those circumstances?
Oh, yeah. Matilda, I think it was Matilda Coulson. She was running after him. I was in the car, not a good runner. So, and Derek, I think Derek must have been with Shane Blanchard, because they're the ones that actually ended up catching him at the Outback store and arresting him there. Shane got out the car and gave him a bit of a bear hug and got him into the back of the car.
And so on that occasion, he was detained without the use of force other than the bear hug. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. I think they might have handcuffed him. I'm not sure, but yeah, it was definitely just a bear hug.
That was September, Your Honour, when he was arrested on the 2nd of September. There was another arrest that you referred to at paragraph 17 of your statement.
Yep.
On return to the community, he came to your attention again on the 22nd after a report of unlawful entry and damage to property at the clinic, and Kumanjayi had to be detained at that stage. Do you recall any particular, I'm asking you to cast your mind back, but at any stage when you had to detain Kumanjayi, do you recall any use of force other than the one that you've described involving the bear hug? Next.
No, not that I can recall.
In 2016, Kumanjayi came to your attention in relation to an assault on his partner, Rakisha.
Yep.
And did you become concerned about an escalation in his behaviour in 2016 in that regard?
Yeah, sorry.
Did you participate in any meetings involving Rakisha and Kumanjayi in terms of trying to resolve or help them?
I know I put a report in to the Department of Children's Services, that's what the Territory Families, for both of them, because I was concerned for her and for Kumanjayi as well.
In terms of the assistance that you wanted to get from Territory Families, you do note that Territory Families workers came to the community and spoke with Kumanjayi, I would draw that, came to the community in an effort to assist on different occasions. Did you have anybody in 2016, for example, from Territory Families based in Yuendamu?
Not that I can recall.
Would that have been of assistance, do you think, in dealing with an escalation?
I think someone based in communities is always a good thing.
At the time of the offending that I just referred to, Waidak told you that they sent a volatile substance abuse report in relation to Kumanjayi sniffing petrol in community with another person known to be a chronic petrol sniffer. You had concerns with Kumanjayi and the effect that had on his mood and behaviour?
Yes.
Was there anything anybody in 2016 available full-time in the community to assist young people with problems with solvent sniffing?
I'm not sure. I mean, they did have drug and alcohol workers, but I'm not sure when that came in. So
it appears from your statement that you can see the link between the solvent abuse and the offence.
And that concerned me that it was his behaviour could have been due to the volatile substance.
So in order to tackle the behaviour, you need assistance to help him tackle that substance abuse. Is that
yes.
right? You note in one of your statements that during your time in community, over 2014 to 2017, you worked with a number of others, in particular Kerry Ann Chilvers and Beth G, who worked with Kumanjayi, and as well as others in the community. Did you feel that there was a joining of resources to try and assist Kumanjayi during that time and cooperation?
Yes, like Beth and Kerry Ann were both really good with Kumanjayi. They spent a lot of time with him.
Was there in the community at that time any psychologist or psychiatrist?
Kerry Ann might have been a psychologist.
So in 2017, we know Carrie Ann was a psychologist at that
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Was she living in community for a period?
Yeah.
You've mentioned during the course of my discussions with you out of court, Rebecca Toll, who's based in Yuendamu.
Yes, she is.
She works for the National Indigenous Australians Agency. Can you tell the court about her role?
That's like a federal role.
And what sort of services does she provide?
Rebecca's been there for a long time, so funding, she provides funding in that, but she's also very much active in the community because she's been there for so long. She's does a lot of things. Yeah, but it is a funding role.
Is she somebody that assists you as a police officer in your
Yes,
role?
absolutely.
Including with young people?
Yeah, we talk a lot and engage in any concerns she will raise.
Before I come more to closer to the present time, we mentioned Southern Kurdigy earlier and the mediation service that's provided by Southern Kurdigy. Between 2014 and 2017, was that a resource for you?
It was different. It was like mediation. That was mediation and not patrol. I mean, it still is, but it was run slightly different back then, from memory. Yeah.
Are the mediation services now still available in the same form?
It's slightly different. Going back, yeah, it's they've got a lot of mediators on there, like local mediators on their board. I think like 13 odd people that are mediators right now. And back then they had mediators, but I don't think they had as many, and I think it was run slightly different. So.
Were they in any way able to assist in terms of mediating issues with yourself or other police and young people like Kumanjayi, or is that not their role from a police?
No, mediation. Back when I was there, mediation, we'd any concerns with any families, they'd go out, talk to the family, bring the child in, and I'd come down. Waidak were involved, and we'd talk about their offending and how it made other people feel, like the victim feel. And then we'd often go have at Waidak like have the victim there, restorative justice for want of a better word, where we have the victim there and they come in and we'd get whoever committed the crime to come and talk to that victim. And then if it was a teacher, there was one time where one of the teachers actually took one of the young offenders to work alongside her so that he could actually see how it affected her class, and some of the family that were in that class. So we were working together in that way back then. So.
And meaningful interventions.
Yeah, something that they can actually see. I think it helps because they see it better, and that emotion as well from that victim. So I think it was something that was really helpful, and I don't know why it stopped, to be honest. So. But it was something that we did do for a period.
No doubt we can hear more about that from others, but from your perspective as a police officer, given you've just told us about that meaningful intervention, is it something you'd like to see come back?
Yes, definitely.
And if funding is the issue, you'd like to see it fully resourced?
Yeah.
Were you able at any stage, or did you, I should say, use those services with Kumanjayi?
No, I don't remember using it. Beth would probably know more. I know Beth was the one that was pretty much the lead in his, speaking with him, and she had a lot of interaction and spent a lot of time with him, so she would be probably a good one to talk to in relation to that.
Thank you. We've got a chronology which sets out Kumanjayi coming and going from the community, including trying different initiatives over that 3 years. Did you feel that you were able to build any sort of relationship with him over that time?
Look, he was very quiet, so the relationship was probably like anything, not as close as other probably children that I've know, but that is also probably because he's a lot shyer and a lot quieter sort of person. So our relationship was like we knew each other, say hello, have a chat when I'm driving around, but I probably had closer relationships with other kids in the community. So
Did you ever have any occasion yourself where you had to use force to detain Kumanjayi?
Not from memory. Probably the only time was when we went into the cell when he was trying to hurt himself.
And was that use of force to stop him hurting himself?
Yes.
In terms of what you were asking for with a mental health assessment and a cognitive assessment, if you had got a report back earlier than 2017 and had been able to read it, would that have been of value to you, do you think, in your role?
I think overall it would have been valuable, obviously for health and for services that maybe could support someone that has cognitive disabilities, and the school, because I guess the school have special teachers that can help with those cognitive deficiencies. So,
am I right, Sergeant Jolly, that your evidence suggests that it takes the whole community
it does.
to lean in and try and help kids in that positions like Kumanjayi was in?
Yes.
Can I come now to your return to Yuendamu in December 2019? It was only a month after Kumanjayi's tragic death.
Yes.
Why did you return to the community?
I offered to come back. I had because I cared about the people and I cared about the community, and I came back to support them. So.
And when you came back, your partner also came back. Is that right?
She came back briefly because she still had a job in Darwin, but she initially came back with me for about 6 weeks, just to be in the community.
And when you returned to the community, you came back as a sergeant. Is that right?
Yes.
And who were the other officers with you at that time?
Rob Jordan was a senior sergeant. Jonathan Sharp was there. Sarah Green, Layla Weathers, Lanyon Smith.
Were they
Atul Dogra was there. Sorry, I've got to try and remember off the top of my head.
So an increased number of officers than had been there
Yes.
previously during 2014 to 2017, is that right?
Yes.
And can you tell the court, when you got there then, what was the mood in the community that you noticed?
I think I'll be honest, the biggest thing I noticed was that the station was really quiet. And I was used to the station, people coming in like a rotating door, in and out, phone ringing constantly. That was probably the biggest thing that I noticed when I first went back. No one was ringing us, no one was really coming up, no one was really talking to us.
You spoke in your statement about the importance of community having trust in their local police, so they can
Yes.
come to them. Did it worry you that there were no phone calls?
It did bother me that clearly there was a distrust. Otherwise, that would have been up there. Yeah.
Was there a strategy to try and address that?
Rob Jordan and I, and obviously all the other guys out there, but Rob Jordan, myself made sure we went out every single morning, and we spent our whole morning just engaging, trying to build some trust back.
And you already had some existing relationships.
Yes.
Was that helpful to you?
Very helpful. Yeah.
And do you feel that you've had, or this is a 6-month period that you were out there initially, were you able to build some trust, do you think, over that 6 months?
Yeah.
From your perspective?
Yes, from my perspective, the community were glad to see me back and welcome me back. So,
Did you have any ACPO at that time, for that 6 months?
there was. Yes, there was an ACPO that actually was there as well. I'm not sure if he was there when I first got there, but definitely was there through my period being there.
What can you tell Her Honour about, from your perspective, what was the impact on other service providers like WIDAC and the council?
I think not from the council so much. I think it was hard for WIDAC, and I think there was probably a bit of distrust in us as well, maybe. I think it was hard for everyone. I think it was hard for all the stakeholders. I think it was, it was a bit of a solemn time when I first come back.
Yes. And then you've told us you've been back there now for about a year.
Yeah.
Why did you come back again to Yuendamu for another stint?
I really missed. Once I went back for that 6 months, I actually really missed everyone. So, and so did my partner, and she was nagging me as well. So we came back.
So Fiona wanted to be back.
Yeah, yeah. She didn't want to leave the first time, so. Yes.
And have we got you for a while now in Yuendamu, Sergeant?
Yes.
When you came back, what was the policing situation like over the last year? How many officers have you had?
Right now we've there's about 8 of us now, including myself.
And are there significant fluctuations in your permanent staff, correct?
Yeah, we've got permanent staff, but we've also got relievers out there as well.
And how many permanent staff do you have there at the moment?
7? 8 with Derek.
Have you got...
No, 7 with Derek, sorry.
7 and Derek, okay.
No, sorry. I think 7 with Derek. I think.
All right.
Yeah.
And are you regularly having a situation where you have relieving staff or additional staff coming in from the town?
Yeah, we have of recent, so...
And in those circumstances, when they come in, do they go through an induction process?
They're always matched up with one of my guys that's a permanent member, so they'll always go around with them.
And one of the people who you've got there who's not permanent is Robin Schmidt, who's got an experience and relationships in the community.
Yeah.
Is that helpful to you?
Very helpful. There's 2 of them actually. So Danny Beerman's there as well. He's another person that's been in the community before. So they've brought 2 people back from Darwin who are familiar to the community. The community know. So.
You've talked earlier about the level of trauma for the community because of Kumanjayi's death. Is there currently, to your knowledge, any permanent counsellor there providing trauma support?
I know Waidak have counsellors. They've got Rustus. I'm not sure if they've got any other counsellors, but apart from that, no. No psychologist or anything.
And is there any support service based in Yuendamu that police could use to debrief or assist them in their work?
Sorry?
Is there any support service or counselling service in Yuendamu, like at the clinic, that police could use to get any counselling if they need it?
I don't think we have a counsellor at the clinic. I think there used to be one, but I don't believe there's one now.
Do you think there is a role for a counsellor at the clinic?
Yeah, I think there is a role for a counsellor.
In terms of new police coming into the community, have you had an experience where you've participated in the induction or getting to know those officers?
Most of the officers we kind of know, or we might know, not necessarily won't know, but certainly if I've got the time, I will take the time to go around with them. If not, I'll have one of my permanent members go around and introduce people, but ideally I would like to do it if Derek's not there, and if Derek was there, I would send Derek.
Do you get a say in who gets recruited to Yuendamu?
No.
Have you ever had a concern with any officer that they don't have the right attitude to be a police officer working with the local community in a constructive way?
You always get... There's been probably a reliever, maybe, or 2, but I can tell you the community will soon tell me very quickly if they don't like them.
And have you had that situation where the community come to you and say, we don't like this fellow?
Well, it's not so much as, sorry, I shouldn't say not like, or they feel that that person is, the way they're speaking, is too rough or something like that. And if they're a reliever, I just talk to my boss and see if we can just swap them out.
And have you ever had a situation where you've gone to an officer who's come in and had a word to them that they might not be speaking with community in a respectful way?
There probably has been times. I mean, I've been there for a long time, and I would address it if someone's made a complaint about one of my members. I will go to my member and sit down and talk to them about what that person felt or what's been said. So yes, if there's any occasion where the community have come to me and it's one of my permanent members, I certainly would sit down and talk to them about that.
Have you ever heard, while you've been at Yuendamu or any other community, police officers coming in who express a lack of regard for community police or bush police?
No, not for me, no.
And would it surprise you to hear of an attitude amongst some members of the Alice Springs Police Force that is disrespectful or contemptuous of community police? Would it surprise you?
Yeah,
Would it surprise you if some officers held that view in 2019?
definitely, yeah.
Would you have expected members of the IRT to hold a view that was disparaging or lacking in respect of community police?
No.
Have you ever heard at any stage police express the view that community police are lazy?
Probably some people would say that. Not directly me, but
Is that to your favour?
no. No.
But when you say probably some people would say that, I mean, have you actually ever heard police in...
I've heard people, but I think people have said that from someone said, that community police are lazy, but not directly at me, no.
What do you think of that?
I think they haven't been bush. I think maybe they need to do a stint.
Have you ever had a police officer who you were working with in town or out bush who's used racist terms, overtly racist terms?
No.
Have you ever heard a police officer you're working with, and I apologise, so I just say this as a warning because I'm about to use terms that are offensive. Have you ever heard a non-Aboriginal police officer refer to an Aboriginal person as a nigger?
No.
A coon?
No.
A Neanderthal?
No.
What would you do if you heard a police officer speak about people in those terms?
I'd be pretty horrified and I'd say something to them. That's pretty offensive, in my opinion.
Would you report that conduct if you heard it?
Yes.
Would you think that that conduct brought the Northern Territory Police Force into disrepute?
Yes.
Would you think that the expression of those words was potentially dangerous because it reflected attitudes?
Yes.
Would you tolerate that?
No.
Would you expect a police officer who used that language to be disciplined?
Yes.
Would you expect there to be leadership from police in the Northern Territory in terms of at a sergeant level if they heard that language?
That particular language is very offensive.
And you'd expect them to take action, to let a younger officer know that that was absolutely unacceptable?
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm going to provide the witness with MFIC. I'm going to take you through a series of text messages and ask for your reflections on them, Sergeant, as an experienced officer.
You are right, this line of cross-examination. I've let it go so far, and certainly no difficulty, generally speaking, with this officer proffering an opinion as to the inappropriateness or otherwise of the terms that have been identified so far. But at the moment, the document has not been received into evidence. Secondly, it has not been put into context, whatever context that might be. Secondly, there are private communications which involve a number of people, and I hasten to add, quite separate from Zachary Rolfe, who have not been identified, are yet to be represented, and need to get their own advice about those matters insofar as they might reflect their interests in this inquiry. Moreover, the important thing is that this witness was not a party to any of the communications that we're now talking about, and so in terms of her own professional opinion about whether they reflect or don't reflect attitudes generally, that's simply not relevant.
Dr. Dwyer.
Your Honour, I press this line of questioning. I think my learned friend was in court yesterday when we made it clear that the names of the officers who Constable Rolfe was communicating with are the subject of a non-publication order. So I don't intend to tender this document so that it goes up on the website or anything of that nature. But these text messages have been the subject of a ruling by Your Honour. They are going to come out into evidence, and they should be the subject of evidence now, because Sergeant Jolly has very important reflections as an officer of some 16 and a half years of experience, who's worked in Alice Springs and in Darwin and a significant number of communities where Aboriginal people are. And these text messages reflect attitudes towards police in community and attitudes, or I withdraw that, and are expressions about Aboriginal people. In my respectful submission, the context is crystal clear from the text messages themselves. And if my learned friend would like me to show the officer other text messages that put them in a broader context, I'm more than happy to. And it does not prevent at all these officers coming to give evidence in this court to Your Honour about a broader context if they wish to provide some explanation. And indeed, in my respectful submission, this court will welcome their explanations.
Your Honour, the appropriate time for that to happen is after that evidence has been given. In other words, if this witness is to be recalled to proffer, as it were, an opinion at that point in time, after the relevant witnesses have been cross-examined, but to simply put a document in front of this witness when she's not a party to either one of those, any of these communications, and the persons who specifically are referred to in that document that are yet to be identified, are yet to be represented, and receive the advice that they need to be given independently of anybody else, in my submission, it's utterly inappropriate at this stage.
Your Honour, may I be heard on that for the families? We wholly support Counsel Assisting's approach, not just in terms of content, as well as timing. We ask Your Honour to consider that Mr Edwardson protects one witness only. That witness is protected by procedural fairness. It's no warrant of Mr Edwardson to be speaking about other people who may be affected. Their interests will be protected. This sort of hold-up is going to beleaguer this whole process continuing, and it should be settled now.
Well, I join my learned friend in his suggestion about that, but I don't think this should or will hold up the progress of this inquest. Your Honour has an obligation, I say that with great respect, to ensure that this inquest is, so much as it's within Your Honour's control, is conducted in a way that is efficient, fair, and cognisant of the resources that are involved in a significant inquest like this. We cannot afford to recall Sergeant Jolly at the end of these witnesses. She's being called now so that she can get back to work at a station that clearly needs her. And, Your Honour, there has been ample time for these officers to be represented. Dr Freckleton, a counsel of very significant experience and regard, is at the bar table to represent the interests of the Northern Territory Police Force. The officers who are nominated are being protected in terms of their names, because I have been advised that one of the officers at least is seeking separate legal representation. But that officer has also had ample time to get legal representation, and the Northern Territory Police Association is here to assist individual officers, not in terms of they don't appear for individual officers, but to provide them with advice in the lead up to this inquest, which has been listed since March, to ensure there aren't these sorts of hold-ups.
Yes, given the protection provided by the non-publication order in relation to the names of any persons, in my view, it is appropriate to receive evidence from this experienced police officer. And in my view, her knowledge as to whether or not this is the kind of communications that she's aware of or not, and what she might do if she became aware of these sorts of communications, in my view, is relevant to this inquest, and I'm going to allow the questions.
May I please record?
If Your Honour pleases, in those circumstances, I would ask my learned friend to identify, without reference to the name of the person who is a party to the communication, apart from my client, Zachary Rolfe, who's saying what? Zachary Rolfe's.
Sure, whether it's
Zachary Rolfe's words, I don't want there to be any confusion
or
about a number of the matters that have been raised by my learned friend. They're attributed to Zachary Rolfe. They're attributed to other persons who are not yet represented.
Yes, Your Honour, I'm sorry to jump in late to the objections. I wasn't quick enough before. This goes to the issue that I raised yesterday with at least one of the officers still not having had opportunity to seek leave to be represented in these proceedings, and there is some concern about that, and accepting that Dr. Freckleton does represent some of the officers who will be spoken about now, and I should have perhaps put that earlier, that I would join in Mr. Edwardson's objection for that reason, but also the relevance of, with the greatest of respect, an opinion being offered on text messages that Sergeant Jolly wasn't involved in one way or the other.
Thank you, Your Honour. I've been slow to rise because I've been wanting to hear what has been said by various persons at the bar table. The messages that are to be seen on this spreadsheet are repugnant. They do not represent the values of the Northern Territory Police Force or of most members of that force. To the extent that they're going to be put to this witness to elicit from her whatever response she gives, whether that be abhorrence or otherwise, we have no objection. Our only concern concerns are twofold. One is as to context, so we'd ask that our learned friend provide enough of a context so that the witness can appreciate that in whatever commentary she provides. And the other issue is that we reiterate the position which we expressed yesterday. This is not an inquiry into whether sectors of the police force have racist attitudes. We do not quibble with the proposition at all, which we understand, Your Honour, to have embraced, that such attitudes have the potential to be relevant to actions. But it's that connection which is really important, and we ask that that form the context for any questions that are posed. We do that because what is being traversed with this witness is sensational. We have confidence in respect of most members of the media that they will be responsible in how they portray this issue. But it is important, Your Honour, that the misimpression not be propagated, that this modest number of offensive utterances by text messages be imputed to the whole police force. To do so would run the risk of diminishing the respect in which the force is generally held and the trust that is reposed in them. And that, if that occurred, it would be a most unfortunate outcome of this inquest. I reiterate that in respect of the specific instances that our learned friend has referred to already, and that we assume she will refer to already, those are extremely regrettable expressions that have been employed by the officers concerned. And you will not hear any justification or any rationalisation of those from the Northern Territory Police Force. And we do represent some of those members, and you will hear from them what their views are as to what they have communicated. And some of them at least will be expressing significant contrition to Your Honour and saying that those kinds of utterances are not reflective of who they are, what their attitudes are, or of the attitudes of their squads or their colleagues.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Freckleton. I'm sure that Dr. Dwyer has heard your concerns and will take them on board in relation to the manner in which the questions are asked, but I permit the examination.
May it please the court. And I just know in relation to my learned friend, Miss Oslands, and I appreciate that we need to make sure that that non-publication order is respected. But the officers have had ample opportunity. So it's not correct to say that there has been no opportunity. I need to correct that because it's part of my obligation to ensure fairness. This matter has been listed for a long time now, and officers have had an opportunity to ensure that they get legal representation. But I hear Your Honour's ruling, and I appreciate the concerns expressed by my learned friends. And to date, I note that Sergeant Jolly has said that that sort of language is not something that's familiar to her, which may be a considerable relief to Your Honour. Sergeant Jolly, the first message, if you've turned over that document, is one that has already been released into the public. The date is the 28th of February 2019. The sender of that message was Constable Rolfe, and he says in there, fuck, I'm jealous, Perth is sick, Alice Springs sucks, ha ha. The good thing is it's like the Wild West and fuck all rules in the job really, but it's a shithole. Good to start here because of the volume of work, but will be good to leave. Have you ever yourself regarded it as one benefit of being a police officer in this jurisdiction is that there's fuck all rules?
Never.
Have you ever heard any other police officers express some sort of excitement or pleasure with the fact that there are fewer rules in this jurisdiction?
No.
Does it concern you that a young officer might think that there are fewer rules in this jurisdiction?
It is concerning. We live by the rules, so...
Do you think that the rules that govern police officers...
Sorry, I don't think Dr. Freckleton heard that answer. It was we live by the rules.
Yeah, the rules, that's, yeah.
Do you think that the rules, in terms of the rules that you live by, are important for police discipline? That is to make sure that police, firstly, in terms of use of force, understand those rules
Yes.
and respect them?
Yes.
The next message is a message from Constable Rolfe, sent on the 10th of March 2019, and he says, I'm out at Borroloola, a random community on the coast, because they're rioting. But we came up last time they did this and smashed the whole community. So this time, as soon as we arrived, they started behaving. Have you ever heard any officers express something like that they went into a community and smashed the whole community?
No, not that I can recall.
What do you think about that text message, Sergeant Jolly, from your position as a police officer in the Territory?
It's like a bullying, really. It's like a threatening sort of, we're coming to smash her. Like we're better than you type of attitude.
Is there any place for that in
No.
policing in remote communities?
No.
Do you think that there's any... I'll draw that. If you have a look over the page, 9th of April 2019, you'll see a message from somebody else, a female, to Constable Rolfe.
Mm-hmm.
She says, I'm so sick of Aboriginals tonight, and then fuck, with a number of Ks. And then Constable Rolfe writes back, are they being losers? And then she writes back, this is the 9th of April, 8:48, just had a chick lying the whole time, in quotes, I don't know him. Then her kid has the same last name, oh, no relation, in quotes. And then fucking look her up and they're husband and wife, so we laid into her and she stuck to it. I'll just pause. I note that laid into her may well have the context of being either physical or verbal, so I don't ask you to draw the conclusion. The next one is that person texting Constable Rolfe, and I may have been super hangry. You understand that expression to be a mixture of...
Hungry, when you're hungry and
angry.
getting angry because you're hungry. Yeah.
And Constable Rolfe writes back, hate that, oh or oi. If you're hungry, you're definitely allowed to towel locals up. Towel, towel locals up. Have you ever heard that expression?
No.
And then she writes back to Constable Rolfe, if your last name rhymes with Ulf, you're allowed to towel up locals. And he writes back, I do have a licence to towel locals. I like it. Do you know what that expression means, towel locals?
No, to me that would mean beat up locals. That expression means to me what I would understand it to mean.
Would you be concerned as a sergeant if you heard somebody express the fact that they had a licence or thought they had a licence to tell locals?
Yes.
The next one is the 25th of April 2019 from Constable Rolfe to somebody else, an officer. I'm working dealing with Aboriginal DVs, oh my lord. And then the next one, 27th of April, same day, from a serving police officer to Constable Rolfe. Heard
It's not
you.
the same day, sorry. The 25th was the last one.
Oh.
The next one's the 27th.
Thank you. 27th of April 2019. From a serving police officer to Constable Rolfe. Heard you had a rough arvo yesty, as in yesterday. Grubby fucks. Are you running issued duty belt, etc.? Do you run a comforter? And Constable Rolfe replies to that officer, nah brah, just slightly annoying, ha, coons, man. Have you ever heard the expression coons being referred to? Do you speak about Aboriginal people?
Not in the police force. No.
What do you think about reading a text message like that in terms of using the use of that expression by a serving member of the police force?
It's pretty disgraceful, to be honest. Disrespectful.
Do you agree with me, Sergeant, that it is shocking to hear a serving member of the police force in 2019 use that blatantly racist, disgusting term to refer to an Aboriginal person?
Yes.
The next one is from Constable Rolfe to another person, where he says, and I won't identify the person, just don't get why all that work has got me to the point where it's my job to look after Neanderthals who drink too much alcohol, ha. We'll hear from Constable Rolfe about what he was meaning to infer, but if by the use of the term Neanderthals he's meaning to refer to anybody who is of Aboriginal descent, do you agree that that is disgusting and disgraceful and wholly unacceptable?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Offensive?
Yeah, it's offensive.
Racist?
Very.
The next one is from a serving member of the police force to Constable Rolfe. It's dated the 22nd of June 2019, and it's a question, who was this? Who was the silly bitch? And the response from Constable Rolfe to that officer is, fuck knows, some white bitch who thinks she's Aboriginal. And that next officer replies, lying in the dirt. Constable Rolfe says, fuck knows, some white bitch who thinks she's Aboriginal. And the officer replies to Constable Rolfe, lying in the dirt, pissed, doing a fucking good impersonation.
Impression.
Oh, thank you. Doing a fucking good impression. What do you think of that?
This is pretty disgraceful. Like, yeah, having a go at her race.
Are you surprised to hear?
I am surprised. I'll be honest, I am surprised and shocked.
Is that like anything you heard in Alice Springs when you were there as a police officer?
No,
And if you heard it as a sergeant?
I'd talk to whoever was saying that.
And pull them up on their attitudes?
Yes.
Tell them it was racist?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell them it was unacceptable in the force?
Yeah, speaking like this is.
The next exchange occurs on the 9th of July 2019. Can I, without identifying the person, indicate to you that this is somebody of the rank of sergeant who is communicating with Constable Rolfe and says, the beginning, cool, as long as we got him, had a run, hey. And it's, just to put it in context, an exchange that occurs after an arrest of somebody in a community. And the sergeant says, cool, as long as we got him, hey, had a run, hey, got him, had a run, hey. And Constable Rolfe writes back to that sergeant, yeah, the bush cops would never have been able to get him. Impossible for them. Constable Rolfe then says, so it was good we went. The bush cops fucked up as usual, but that just meant we had a run instead of getting him cordoned properly. So it's all good. And then Constable Rolfe says, he was fair rapid. And then the sergeant replies, "Good job. I'll let Nobs know the details. I want to do a lot more of this stuff. That's a couple we've got for Nobs." There's a superintendent Nobs, is that right, Sergeant Jolly?
Yes.
And then Constable Rolfe writes back to the sergeant, "Yeah, I'm hell keen. It seems he's getting on board." I pause to note that we'll hear from Superintendent Nobbs about what he thinks about this. Then the sergeant replies to Constable Rolfe. So I'll just pause. Sergeant Jolly, this is the sergeant replying to Constable Rolfe. "Those bush coons aren't used to people going after them." And Constable Rolfe writes, "Yeah, bush cops blow my mind. I'll tell you about these dudes when I see you." And then another text message on a different day. So I just want to ask you about that exchange.
It's pretty hurtful. Pretty hurtful to all the bush cops as well.
So there's two things I wanted to ask you about that exchange. Firstly, the fact that a sergeant...
It's encouraging that kind of talk is not good.
Do you agree that that reflects a serious dereliction of duty in terms of a responsibility of a sergeant to mentor a young officer?
Yeah.
And then the attitude towards bush police or community police that's expressed there about bush police, in the expression used by Constable Rolfe, fucking up or messing up as usual, and that bush police would never have been able to arrest someone or catch someone. What do you think
That's
about
pretty
that?
hurtful. That's pretty hurtful. We work really hard out there, so that's a hurtful thing to say.
Do you think it also reflects a lack of understanding of the way in which community police interact with community members, that where they try to minimise the use of force and build relationships?
Yeah, it does. Like, that's what we do. You know, we work hard out bush so that we don't have to use force.
Do these messages suggest that there might be, if those attitudes are ongoing, a need to explain to police further about the role of community police? And
Yeah, just makes it sound like we're weak because we don't go in hard, maybe. That's hurtful.
the next messages were on the 11th of July 2019 from Constable Rolfe to a sergeant. "We could just cut a few people and rejig the team. Nobs should be loving us at the moment." The next one, officer, I wanted to ask you about is from the 12th of July. It's from Constable Rolfe to another constable in the police force. It says literally 50% of the women at our work. And then there's a picture, which I don't need to put on the screen, but it's a picture of somebody who looks overweight and demonic. And the message going next to it is, "Girls shaped like this talk the most shit." If I suggest to you that that text message is sexist, do you agree with me?
Yes.
And offensive?
Yeah, it is. Horrible. Horrible thing to say.
Have you, in your time at the police force, heard male officers use expressions that are overtly sexist and offensive like that?
No.
Would you pull a police officer up if they spoke about women like that?
Yes.
Do you think it's important in policing to have officers show respect for other officers?
Yeah. We should be looking after each other, respecting each other.
Is it important for your sense of camaraderie and teamwork?
Yeah. We're one unit. Just because we're bush and we're all the same.
On the same day, another officer, the same officer who Constable Rolfe sent that message to about women shaped like that, sends a message to Constable Rolfe saying, "Yeah, been a bit hectic. The cops out here have fucked this town." And I apologise, I'm going to say something else offensive, in quotes. That constable texts Constable Rolfe, "Yeah, been a bit hectic. The cops out here have fucked this town. They have been letting the niggers, NIGGAS, drink wherever they want. Ha ha. And then from Constable Rolfe, back to that officer, bush cops are fucking shithouse. And then that officer texts Constable Rolfe, ha ha, just got the photo. And that's the photo of the offensive caricature.
Mm-hmm.
And then Constable Rolfe to his colleague, girls and bush cops all disgust me, ha ha. Constable Rolfe can explain for himself what he meant by that, but what do you feel listening to that?
I think it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful because it's not only against the Indigenous, but it's against his own colleagues. So to me, it's disgusting, disgraceful.
If it was intended to suggest that girls and bush cops were somehow weak, what do you say about that?
They need to come out bush, see how good we are, you know.
What do you think about the suggestion, if it's made, that to be a strong cop, you need to use force?
No, to be a strong police officer, you need to be fair, honest, transparent, and do the best you can and treat everyone like you'd want your own family to be treated.
The next text messages is one that has already been released into the public as a result of the trial. And that's Constable Rolfe texting in July, we have this small team in Alice, IRT, Immediate Response Team. We're not full-time, just get call up from GDs for high-risk jobs. It's a sweet gig, just get to do cowboy stuff with no rules. At the time in 2019, did you ever have any involvement at all with the IRT?
No.
Would you have thought them to be a team that got to just do cowboy stuff with no rules?
No. Our organisation wouldn't allow that.
So would you have thought the IRT at that time, if you needed to ring them, you'd be ringing a team that was disciplined?
Yes.
And a team that did not have members that expressed racist views?
Yes.
And would you have expected in 2019 that if you needed to call out the IRT, you'd be calling out people who would listen to a female bush officer or community officer?
Yes.
In September 2019, a serving officer texted Constable Rolfe, sorry about the stress caused by losing my shit the other night. Stress you don't need. You sorted it well. I just had enough. He was the second person to press my button that night. And Constable Rolfe replies, bro, there was literally no stress about it. I'm all for that shit. I've done the same thing to you more than once before. I'm always ready to make my camera face the other way and be a dramatic cunt for the film. Ha ha. And the officer texts Constable Rolfe and the Oscar goes to, and Constable Rolfe says, ha ha. If the officers there are referring to the fact that there was acting for the body-worn video, does that surprise you?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of police officers acting in a particular way after they turn their body-worn video on?
No.
If you had any hint that an officer you were supervising was doing that, what would your response be?
I'd be talking to them, I'll be pulling them up on it. It's not acceptable.
And is it a matter you think that this should be the subject of discipline if an officer was found to be doing that?
Doing the wrong thing, yes.
On the 22nd of September 2019, an officer sent a text message to Constable Rolfe, who was disappointed not to be called up to the TRG. And somebody else got into that position. The police officer texts Constable Rolfe, that's their standard line now. Everyone knows people go out bush because they're fucking lazy. Maybe that's who they're looking for now. The order of preference now is blacks, chicks, gays and lazy fucks. Then Zach. Do you have a comment on that, Sergeant?
Wow. That's disgraceful. That's really, very racist against all walks.
And homophobic.
And homophobic, yes.
And sexist.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
are they views that you encountered in your time in Alice Springs, or are they completely shocking to you?
No, it's disgraceful. It's horrible, horrible thing to say.
And then finally, after Kumanjayi passed away, there's an exchange you'll see between a police officer and Constable Rolfe. And the first part of that exchange is about an Assistant Commissioner's press conference. This is Assistant Commissioner White's press conference, which is being critiqued by the constable.
Yep.
And that constable says, it's not Constable Rolfe, it's to Constable Rolfe, says, "Fucking woeful. Idiot is just replying to every question with, that will be a matter for the coroner, fucking clown." In terms of that attitude expressed towards an Assistant Commissioner, does it concern you if that's coming from a constable?
Yeah.
Do you think the lack of respect towards management is a concern?
Yes.
Do you think that undermines effective policing in the Northern Territory, or has the potential to?
Yes.
I won't read it all onto the record, but you'll see that the remainder of that exchange...
Your Honour, just before, I wonder if my learned friend might clarify that. It's one person saying one thing. I don't think a learned friend meant to put to the officer that one person saying something so absurd and inappropriate is going to undermine people's attitudes, but I take it what she was asking was whether, if that was a prevalent attitude within the force, that would undermine discipline and respect.
That's correct.
Yeah.
If there was an attitude amongst more junior officers that was expressing a contempt for Assistant Commissioners or Commissioners, do you think that has the potential to undermine discipline in the Northern Territory Police Force?
If this was everyone's attitude, but it's not.
I'm so sorry, Zach,
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
This is not the attitude of most police officers, I don't believe. So if this, it's not what I've heard people say. So it's not the attitude of the police, I'm saying.
Well, that is likely to be a great relief to many
Yeah.
people. Do you agree?
Dr. Dwyer, I note that we haven't concluded this line of questioning, but there is some disturbance. We'll just see if it settles down and we can just finish this line of questioning
Thank you.
for lunch. But if it continues, I think we need to
Certainly, Your Honour.
take a break. We'll see how we go. It seems that we might be able to continue.
That seems to be resolved. And I've nearly finished, Sergeant Jolly.
Yep.
It's important to get your reflections, I think, on whether you think it is more widespread. I take it from your evidence so far that you have not heard expressions from the officers you work with that are disrespectful towards the Assistant Commissioner or Commissioner.
No, I mean, people all have an opinion, but no one's, this is not the opinion of the Northern Territory Police as a whole. Not systemically, no.
And we can all be annoyed with our boss from time to time.
Correct.
But in terms of any consistent attacks on Assistant Commissioners or Commissioners, if you heard expressions from junior members where they were constantly critical of people at the ASCOM or Commissioner level, is that something that you'd pull them up on?
Yeah, I'd say something to them. Like, look, everyone has a bad day and everyone might say something every now and then because we're humans.
Sure.
But I think if someone consistently was bagging someone or in a very negative and derogative way, then that's an issue.
If you could just read to yourself the remainder of that text message from a constable to Constable Rolfe, you'll see an acronym there that's used. IAMOPI. And I anticipate that I will submit to Her Honour that this text message should not have been sent to Constable Rolfe because it is suggestive as to how evidence might be given or how the story might be told about what occurred. Do you recognise that acronym, IAMOPI? it purports to stand for intent, ability, means, opportunity, preclusion.
Yeah, so it's from, yeah.
Do you recognise the acronym?
Yeah.
Do you, or what is it?
It's like it's talking about, you know, having the intent and the ability. Someone that may be going at you that's got the intent and the ability to hurt you and the means to do it. That's your opportunity to use your force.
So
that's how I take that.
So it's a justification for the use of force?
Correct.
You understand that the protocol when you're dealing with a critical incident or death in custody is that officers need to be separated so that they can
Yes.
give an account that's not contaminated. Do you agree that well, would you understand that to include that you would, if you were involved, heaven forbid, in an incident where somebody was killed and it was declared a critical incident because it was a death in custody,
Yes.
would you ever text another involved officer with a suggestion about the use of force?
Now it's pretty clear that we're supposed to not communicate with each other while it's being under investigation.
And you'll see there a reference to under I for intent, and I don't need to read it out, it's too offensive, but you see there a suggestion as to, or a name used for Kumanjayi after
Yes.
he passed away.
Yeah.
You offended by that?
Yes, very much so.
And then the last message exchanged is from a constable. Might we take the lunch and adjourn?
Yes. Lunch, and I appreciate that this has been a difficult experience.
Yep.
Being confronted with this kind of material.
Thank you, Your Honour.
I'll see you after lunch.
Thank you.